everyone, it's Tammy, and I thought that I would do another video with knitting. And this says to use 5mm knitting needles, and the one that I have is 5.5 millimeters. So I'm just going to use that one. It says to use a size 8, and this is one of the, I think they call these round. Gosh, I don't even remember what they call these, but this is, I mean, I would never have known what to do with these prior to watching several thousand YouTube videos. But this, you can make things that are a lot longer than if you were knitting on just using the sticks, or the knitting needles. I really need to stop saying that. I don't know that I ever will, though. I might just keep saying it. But the knitting needles that are long sometimes are harder, at least for me, to work with, at least from what I've learned so far. So I really kind of like these. They do have some that are interchangeable where you can take these off and you can just buy like different sized, whatever this is, and this can then, you just change your needles and you can use the same this, and then you don't have to have so many sets of hooks everywhere. And these are a little bit awkward to store because you can see that they want to pop open or pop out. And I was thinking about sewing maybe a little knitting needle holder or something. I don't know. I have big dreams sometimes, and honestly, I really don't know what I'm doing too much. So I'm going to look at this yarn. This is a beautiful color. It is called Cranberry. It is from Hobby Lobby, and it's called I Love This Yarn. It's super soft, super savings. It was $3.99, but I know I didn't pay that much for it. I probably got it for half off, so I probably spent $2 for this skein of yarn. And it is a 4, which is a medium, and it's 355 yards, which is an awful lot. At least I think so. So I am going to do a long tail cast on. So there are different cast on methods, and casting on, and I'm just going to start with the basics. If I don't know what something is, I'm going to assume that you guys don't know. So casting on just means to get your knitting yarn onto your needle so that you can start knitting. It has to have something on there for you to begin with, and that's called a cast on. A cast off is where you bind it, or they sometimes call it a bind off, where you make it so that it won't unravel at the very end, so you're casting off. So you cast on to put it on, you're casting off to take it off. And there's a few methods, but I have really been playing, and I enjoy the long tail cast on method, and it is pretty easy and it's fun. The other ones are a little awkward for me, and I haven't really gotten used to those yet. So, and the long tail one I think makes a pretty cast on. It makes looks like a braid. So the trick, I guess, for a cast on is that you want to have at least 1 inch for every, if you want to cast on, let's say 40 stitches, you want to have 40 inches then at least of yarn on your long tail to cast on. So I'm going to, I don't even know how many stitches I need. Let's see, this says that it uses 18 stitches in 4 centimeters, or in 10 centimeters, okay, which is 4 inches. So, and 4 inches isn't very big. 4 inches is about here, and it has 18 stitches. So I'm going to at least triple that. Here I have a measuring tape over here. 4 inches is, it's bigger than I thought, but it's not that much bigger, I guess. 4 inches, let's see, 8 inches. Oh, that might be big enough. So 18 plus, let's do 40. Let's just cast on 40. Make it a round number. And actually I'm going to do, oh goodness, I want to do, I think, a seed stitch. So I'll say, I think you have to have an odd number. Because let's see if I do, and I'm just thinking out loud. Purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. If I didn't do that, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. I don't know. I know there's a rule, but I don't know what it is. I'm going to say 41 just because I want to be safe. So I'm just going to take this out. This is probably about 3 feet. And I don't know. Another 3 feet. So that's, I don't even know how big 3 feet is. Why am I doing this? A yard is how many inches? 12, 24, 34, 36. So yeah, 2 of those should be plenty. Probably too much, but that's okay. So then to do you need to have what do they call those? You start every project with this, and I can't even remember the name of it. Most every project with this. Most of the projects that I've started with this. A slip knot. There we go. And to do that, you just kind of, and I had, in one of my previous videos, I told you had to have the tail a certain way. I have played with it, and that's not true. You just have to make sure that you're holding on to both of these ends when you're doing a slip knot. So you just drape it over your fingers, grab both of these strings that are hanging down, turn your hand around, and then pick up the working yarn, which is the one that's attached to the yarn ball, and then drop this off and pull this up. So now this is a slip knot, and the working yarn is the one that's going to make this either bigger or smaller. And I want it to be small enough to fit on here. I was just trying to show you. So, so you just bring your working yarn and pull this so that it's up against here. Now, one of the keys for knitting is that you do not get things too tight. So you don't want to take this and tighten the heck out of it and just pull it so it doesn't move. See how you can make it so it's kind of hard to move? You want this to move freely with no problems, just glides back and forth. If it's tough to move at all, then you've got it way too tight. And I mean way too tight. So loosen that puppy up so that it is not going to be tight up against your needle. So then to cast on, you take your yarn, and I'm going to actually flip this around just because of the way that I have it. I want my ball of yarn, my working yarn, to be on that side and my tail to be on this side. And you grab both of them, but then you separate them with your finger, your index finger and your thumb. So I have it separated with both of those, and I make kind of a triangle, but then you pull this back. So it's kind of like like you're doing a rubber band slingshot or something. You need to pull this back, and then what you do, so let me get a little better grip on it. I don't like this laying against my thumb, but then you just push your knitting needle through the little hole that's in your thumb, and then over this one, so it goes through the little hole. So the way I'm looking at it is I put it through this hole, and then I put it through this hole, and then I put it back through this hole. And then I released my thumb, and with my thumb I pull back what I just saw, and there is another stitch on here. And the first one, the slip knot, counts as a stitch. So there's 2 on there already. So let me show you this again. You take your yarn and you separate it with your finger and your thumb, and then you take your stick, you put it through this hole, back through this hole, and then you release your thumb, and then take your thumb and pull with the other yarn that was down, that was released. So now I have 3. So I'll show you again. There, there, there. Release your thumb, and then down here there's a piece of yarn you just pull. There, there, there. And don't be worried if you are slow. Don't be worried if these little end stitches look like they're going all over the stick or the needle, and they're just like going crazy. Maybe something like this, and you don't have like a smooth line and you're kind of going, what in the world? Don't worry. I've done all of those things, and it doesn't matter. You will get better. I promise. I mean, it's crazy how quickly you can, it's just crazy. Just practice makes perfect. So just keep practicing. I mean, I can do this now super quick without even thinking about it. It's insane how things go. So, but I'm doing it really slow so that you guys can see. But okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm just going to slide that back a little bit. Through, pull. 7, through, pull, 8, through, 9. And I know it's happening now, but when I was first started, this happened all the time. Like after each stitch, I had to reset my hand to pull more yarn, because I don't know, for whatever reason, when I'm doing this, my thumb, I keep getting like, it keeps stretching this yarn out. I keep pulling this yarn through, and then I can't stretch my thumb out far enough to make it work. So, you know, all of those mistakes, or they're not even really mistakes, but all of those techniques that aren't maybe ideal, trust me, it's okay. You will get better if you stick with it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It wasn't until one day I was looking at this and I was like, holy cow, like my stitches were all in a row and they all look fairly nice. Now see, you can see this one's a little bit of a mess, but I'm not going to worry about it. It's not a big enough mess for me to restart, but they all look fairly the same, whatever that is, fairly consistent. And, you know, you can count each stitch. So I promise you, this is way better than I was when I first started. I'm still not anywhere close to perfect. I'm still learning. I'm still totally a beginner. And I just really have liked it, and I like to play. And I used to say that I didn't like the needles as much as I liked the loom. And gosh, after just a month of doing this, I'm kind of thinking I like the needles better. I like them both. They both serve a good purpose. The needles are so much faster, and they're harder though. I think they're easier to make mistakes anyway. So I don't even know how many I have. I will stop here in a second and count them. So let's see. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So I have 19 to go, and I'm just scooting these back. So again, you put these in your hand like this, pull back with your thumb and your index finger, go through and through and through and pull, and through and through and through and pull, through, pull, through, pull. And you will get much faster as you keep going, and maybe not for the first 10 projects will you get to be even this fast, and you'll be like, I can't do this. This is so frustrating. Stick with it. You will get there. If this is something that you want to do, you will get there. So now I need to count these again. I haven't been counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So 11 more. So let me just go ahead and do that. And I'll go kind of slow for these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm going to stop at 5, and just because I want to show you guys something. So I stopped at 5, and why did I stop at 5? Oh, because I wanted you to notice how I'm holding my needle. I am not holding it with a firm grip. I'm just lightly holding it, just like I would be holding, I don't know, maybe a spoon to feed a kid or something like that. I'm not gripping it like crazy. This hand is not nuts. I was even resting it on the ball of yarn. It's not like total death grip or any of that, which is something that I did at the beginning as well. Oh my goodness. My hands were hurting and I didn't realize why, but it doesn't hurt to knit. It actually, you know, it doesn't hurt at all to knit. So I was totally doing it wrong. So I stopped at 5. I have 6 more to go. So just lightly hold it. Now some of these are tighter than maybe others, but it's okay as long as they can still slide on this freely. And it's going to be harder to slide with all of these on here, but you know, I can still slide the whole thing. It's all good. So I need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one kind of messed up. I saw it happening when it was happening, so let me take that off because I don't want that big loop to be there. Oh, maybe it fixed itself. It did. I think that was 5. So then this one is 6. So this should be 41. I'm going to count them again just to be sure. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 29, 31, 33, 35, 37, 39, 40, 41. Okay, so I've got 41 stitches on here, and then I still have a long tail, so I did have too much of my tail, but that's okay because this we will cut and we'll weave it in with the rest of the stitches at the end. So the tail you just kind of forget about. The tail doesn't do anything else now, but the tail you can see is a lot shorter than it was to start. That's because the tail is what was used to cast on. When you do it this way, the long tail casts on the yarn, so that's how that's done. So now I just need to worry about the working yarn. I just kind of leave this one to the side, not trying to worry about it, just making sure it's kind of out of the way. And then I treat these just like they were regular needles, although clearly they're not because they have this cool thing on them, and it's a little bit intimidating, but please just know that you don't have to be intimidated because you treat these like regular needles. And I was even afraid that once it got on here, how's it going to get back on the needle? But it's, I don't know, it's magic. It works. I mean, I guess because it's already been through, you know, it's sized to fit this. So when it goes on here, it's fine. And then you can see how this tapers up and it just slides back onto the needle. So it's pretty cool. So I'm going to knit this first row. And so to do that, and these circular things do 2 really great things. One, it can make you have longer projects so that you don't have to worry about, and this is 40 stitches, or 41 stitches, and you can see this isn't very big. And I don't know exactly what I'm going to make with this yet, but we'll see. I don't know why I'm even saying that, but I don't know, maybe I should make it a little longer. Or I could make it in a round, and I don't know if I'm getting too advanced, but just so you know, and I say that almost jokingly because I don't feel advanced at all, but I have learned a lot. So you can use them like regular just needles where I transfer from one hand to the other hand to the other hand to the other hand, or I could do something in the round where after I have cast it on my next set, I will continue it onto the first stitch again so that it's just one big long piece. So a lot of cowls are done that way, socks are done that way. You could even do fingerless gloves that way. Anything that you want to be in the round, you can do it on these needles, and you don't have to then sew them together up the seam. You can just do it this way and they're already connected. It's already in a circle. So okay, so let's get started again. This is my working yarn. I want my working yarn to be in front of me, or at least, you know, I need to know that that's my working yarn. And then, so to knit the knit stitches, I take my right hand needle and I put it through the loop, the first stitch that I've made. And you just, something that I have found helpful is when you're doing it, and you want to make sure also before you start, I didn't say this, make sure that your braid or your cast on is in a fairly even line. You don't want it all discombobulated and twisted around like that. You want this line to be fairly straight, like so. So I want to put this through here, and I just go right to the top of the knot. So it's not even a knot, but right in the top of where you see this stitch, just go right there, and then you can push your needle right through. I've found that to be very helpful sometimes, especially if I've messed up a stitch or whatever, because it's hard sometimes to get it through, and you're going, oh, and if you have to push really hard to get it through, then you've knitted too tightly. There are times that might happen, but that shouldn't be the norm for sure. Shouldn't even be close. So I'm just going to push this through, and then I take my working yarn, and I like to have a little bit of it so I have a little bit of lax. I take my working yarn and I just put it, I don't even know if this is counterclockwise or clockwise. It feels like it's clockwise, but I could be wrong. You just take it and you put it around the needle. And you want to make sure, I mean, I don't want to put it this way around the needle, I guess is what I'm saying. You go from your index finger to your thumb. And then, so it's, okay, let me just show you again because it's hard when I let go and then start again. So I'm going to put this through, and then I'm going to take this, put it over that, and then I'm going to take my needle and bring it up through the knot again. So I'm bringing it up, and look, you can see how this is there, this little piece right here. That's a mistake. That shouldn't be there. So let's just start that again because clearly I did something wrong. I probably went through a yarn, which happens a lot. Let me show you what I'm talking about. When you're knitting, sometimes you will go through the yarn as opposed to like having the yarn go around you. Look at that. I just went through this yarn. And that is a total mistake because this can cause problems. It can cause extra stitches. And trust me, I did this a million times and I clearly still do it. So just be careful of that. You want to kind of watch what you're doing and make sure that it doesn't go through the yarn, which is what it did when I did it the first time. So now I'm bringing that through, and then now I'm pulling this up and in. So now you can see I have a stitch over here, and then I need to get rid of this stitch over here. So then I just take my index finger and kind of push it off, and I have my stitch right here. I can use my working yarn, not my tail, get that out of the way. I can use my working yarn to make this tighter, or I can pull to make it looser. And it should be, let me get rid of this. And it's all curly, and so it's crazy. It should be this easy to pull. Now I'm just totally exaggerating it because you certainly don't want it to be that big, but you can kind of see what I mean. This working yarn controls what you've knitted. And so I don't want to pull it too tight, but I also don't want to make it so that it's all totally loosey-goosey. So I don't know how to hold your yarn yet. I am not an expert at all. I can't tell you what works and what doesn't work because I don't clearly know yet. And for some reason, I feel like I'm knitting with this piece here. Let me just start this again. I'm just starting this again. I need to do one more cast on, I think, because I don't know what I did. Sometimes it's hard when you're teaching because you screw up and you don't even know you've screwed up because you're trying to do it slower than you normally do or do it differently than you normally do. So it's hard, but my philosophy is always watch one, do one, teach one, and that's what I'm doing. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. Some of the things that I say might not be exactly the way you'd want to do it, but this will totally get you started. And this is what I know, and this is what I've learned, and when I learn something new or different, I will tell you. But otherwise, this is what I have. So let me count these again just to be sure. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Oh, see, I counted wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, oh, 42. I have too many. I need to take one off. Okay, so now I have 41. All right, so let's try this again. Tail over here, working yarn over here, sticking this through, going around, pulling this back, pushing this off, and pulling this just a little bit. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to push my yarn or my needle over the knot into this stitch, go around, pull back, go through, pull that off. And I don't like to spend the time to pull this every time. I just kind of leave it. So let's just go ahead and do that again. Go through, around, pull back, and take the stitch off. And this, my friends, is the knit stitch. So if you are doing this, you are knitting. Woohoo, woohoo, woohoo. And I know that it seems maybe complicated, but it is so much fun. If this is something that you think that you'd like to do, I really encourage you to try it. And it might not be your thing. That's fine. I mean, everybody can't have the same thing. And you just keep on doing, and I want to do knits on the whole row. So I'm, again, just putting this right above the knot, sliding it through, going around, pulling it back with this yarn still on my right hand stitch, and then pulling this stitch off the left hand. And again, watch how I'm holding my sticks. I'm not holding them tightly. I'm not holding them with any sort of grip or fierceness. I'm just merely holding them. They're very loosey-goosey in my hands, not tight at all, just holding them. And I like to hold them kind of probably funny. I don't know how other people do it, but I hold the yarn in this hand. I know that some people hold the yarn up here, and I know that this, I think, is called the continental way, and this is the English way, something like that. I don't know. I just know that this works for me, and this is what I do, and I'll probably learn other ways as I go, but until I learn better, this is what I'm doing. And the tail is stuck to the first stitch. That's always how it works. So just don't even mess with the tail. Just know that that's there, but you don't need it for anything until the end. So I'm just going to continue on. Push that around, bring this up through that hole, whoops, and see how at first I went like this? I don't want that. I want to go back through this little space that's given, and then off. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Pull it through the knot, loop this over, push this through and up, and then out, or off. Doop, 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 doop. And this you can get super fast at. Now, I'm not super fast yet, but I can do it fairly quickly. I'm impressed with how quickly I can do it compared to what I was to start. So, I mean, and it just takes practice. That's all that it takes. So I'm just putting my needle in, taking my string, yarn, going around, pull it back and up and off. Around, back, up, off. And as I'm doing it, I'm kind of sliding these forward so that I'll have another loop to use. And then as you're doing it too, you want to slide these back. Another not loop to use, another stitch to use. So push that through, go around. It's really fun, and to me, it's like stress relieving because it's just kind of I don't know. It's like maybe a monotonous thing and it just feels good. I don't know exactly, but I'm really liking it, and I'm really liking the needle knitting. I like the other knitting too. I'm still doing that, but it feels like those take forever. But I will say that in some respects, it's way easier to loom knit because you don't have to worry about counting stitches so much. You don't have to worry about what stitch was next. I don't know. I feel like it's easier. Well, I guess you do still have to worry about what stitch is next, but for whatever reason, I seem to lose stitches or gain stitches doing it this way, and that's frustrating to me. Oops. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just learning, so I will get there. So normally when you're counting rows, from what I understand, unless the pattern tells you otherwise, you don't count the cast on row. So this is actually row 1 that I am stitching now, or knitting now, because I'm a knitter. Knit, knit, knit. How about that? And if you're doing this with me, you're a knitter too. And you really don't want to get on the tail end of these like I was just now doing. It's easier to stay back a little bit. You can see where it starts to be the tip, and then where it kind of gets to be just the base of the needle. You kind of want to do your stitches on the base of the needle. You obviously start on the tip, but you kind of want to stick to the base of the needle for the actual stitch. Or close to it. So I have 2 more to go. This one goes in by the knot, around, up, through, and off. And then this is the very last stitch, and you're going, oh no, what do I do with this last stitch? Same thing, don't worry, just do the same thing. And then you're taking it off, and you might be going freaking out, going, I just took it off. That's okay. You want to take it off, and you want to now look at your work, see how I want to put all of these together, and you see how I'm doing it fairly like that. When I first started, it was more like this. I mean, it was crazy. My stitches were everywhere, but you want them to be, again, straight and similar. And you can see how some stitches are now on the cord, and they're just hanging out down there. They're not doing anything. They're just hanging out, but watch, I can push them back onto the knitting needle with no problem at all. And then I can push them off. Isn't that cool? So now here's a common mistake, and I know it's common because I did it a million times. See how this loop kind of, let me use this needle to kind of demonstrate. See how this loop, which is actually the knit stitch of this stitch, see how it is really kind of big and sticks up like that? If this gets twisted and it ends up like that, you might think that this yarn goes this way and that's 2 stitches, right? I mean, that's kind of how it looks. But that's not at all. You need to be careful and make sure that your stitch looks like the other stitches. So bring it down and know that that's just 1 stitch, and this is just the loop for the stitch, and you can just leave it just like that. It doesn't have to be pulled tighter or anything. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a bigger little loop, and that's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. So now I'm going to purl this next row, and maybe I should do another row of knitting, but I think I want to show you the purl stitch because I really think I want this project to be a row of knit, then a row of purl, then a row of knit, then a row of purl. That's a very common stitch pattern, and it makes it really beautiful, I think. And it's called something. I think it might be called the stockinette. Let me see if I have it in here, if this tells me what this is. And there's some patterns in here. Ooh, I wonder if I should use one of these little patterns. Chloe the Caterpillar. I really like this. I don't know that I'm ready to do a cable stitch yet, which is what that's called. Those like braids. I did something pretty cool, but it's not that. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's called the stockinette stitch, but I'm not positive. I need to put my window down. It's freezing. It gets hot in here because of the lights, and then it gets freezing. And so, okay, I'm just going to do the purl stitch. So the purl stitch is opposite the knit stitch, and although it's a cool stitch, it's a little bit harder to maybe explain and to do. But let me try, and I'll take it really slow, and hopefully you guys can understand what I'm talking about. So again, I have all of my stitches here, and I have the little cast on, I guess, at the bottom. Like I want it to be like that. And then, so for knitting, you go under and up. For purling, you're going to want to go over and down. So I'm going over this stick and down. And for knitting, I would go under that stick and down. I want to use the same spot in the yarn. I'm just going in opposite direction. And also you want to make sure that your working yarn is on the top instead of on the bottom. When I'm knitting, I want the working yarn to be at the bottom, and I just go through and I knit this way. If I'm purling, I want my working yarn to be at the top, and then I go through this way. So it's just a complete opposite of each other. So to purl, I'm going to stick it in this way. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and go counterclockwise. So I'm going the other way. Again, completely opposite from the way that I did before. I want this to go around like that. And then I'm going to pull this down. Let me do one real quick because now I'm getting confused if I'm trying to explain it and I can't. It's I'm like, wait a second, what do I do? I feel like I'm doing it wrong. Okay, I think that's right. I'm going to do another one real quick just by myself just to make sure that I'm doing it right before I show you guys how to do it, because I would hate to tell you guys the wrong thing. All right. Oh, as I just take both of these off. I'm going to bring this through here and over here like that so that it'll be more apt to stay on the top. Okay, so what I'm going to do is kind of what I just told you, but you take this, go in and down, or over and down. Then you take your yarn and go around counterclockwise from finger to thumb, and then you pull back on your needle and see how you have, I have this one that's around. I pull back on my needle and I go through or under this stitch, and then I pull that stitch off. And now I have 3. So again, let's try this again. You take this and go over the left hand stick and down, and then you take your yarn, go a working yarn, go around the knitting needle from finger to thumb. I like to hold this working yarn just so that I can see better what's going on. If I leave it loose, sometimes it's hard to tell what's happening. Sometimes it doesn't want to like stay onto this to the stick, so I just pull this so just lightly so that I can see what's going on. I use my thumb sometimes to push this down, and I just want to go around this yarn. See how I'm just going, brought it down and around that yarn, and then that stitch gets pushed onto this stick, and then I take this one off. So let's do it again slowly, and I'll try to make it closer. I'm pushing my right hand needle through the yarn, going up over the left hand stitch and down, and then I am taking my yarn, going counterclockwise from finger to thumb around the knitting needle, and I'm kind of holding that yarn so that it won't, I don't know, catch and jump away, and then I bring that loop through this stitch to create a stitch on my right hand needle and pull off the stitch from my left hand needle. So I do this and this and this and pull it off. And you can work however works for you. I know that when I first started this, something that worked for me well was to take this, to go around, and then I would take my needles and I would bring this one down and back behind it this way and pull it off. And I don't know if that helped me or not. I think when I figured out that I was just kind of doing this, I think that helped me. So whatever might help make you feel like you're doing it the way you want, then all of those things are just details. They're not gonna, I mean, you're still doing it whichever way you do it. And I'm sure there's lots of different ways you can hold your yarn, lots of different ways you can hold your needles. So I'm not really teaching you how to do that so much. I just want you to understand how to knit. And knitting is pretty much made of the knit stitch and the purl stitch. If you can do those two stitches, you are pretty much doing every stitch that you can do. There are some fancier ways to do the stitches, but I don't know of any other stitch in knitting. There's probably some, but I just haven't learned them yet. So everything that I've made is comprised of knit stitches and purl stitches. And it's really super easy and super fun. And once you get the how to do the stitches, then half the battle is done. Just keep practicing and speed will come and a little more knowledge will come, and you'll be able to control things just a little bit better. And as you go through the project, this is getting longer and longer, and it gets so much easier, in my opinion, to hold the needles and to control the project when the project is getting a little bigger. So I'm going to show you again, kind of slow. You go in and then over the left hand needle and down. Take my yarn, my working yarn, go around the needle from finger to thumb, and then go around the knitted stitch on the left hand side to put the stitch on the right hand side, and then pull it off. So go down this way, and we're knitting, people. And again, this is called the purl stitch, and it's spelled P-U-R-L. And it is opposite the stitch of the knit stitch, which is just true forward knitting. And the reason you don't want to necessarily do just a knit stitch for a whole project is because the sides will totally roll up on you, and I've learned that also from experience. I was making a nice scarf for my husband, and I was using green, beautiful yarn, and I think I may have done the knit stitch around the whole thing, and it totally rolled up, and instead of being like, I don't know, an 8-inch wide scarf, it is now like, I mean, it looks like it's a circular, almost like 3 inches in diameter kind of a scarf. So I don't mind. I will use it. I'll wear it whenever I need to wear something of that color or feel like wearing that color, but who are we teasing? I'll just wear that color with black. But it's not something that I can let Dennis use because it looks a little feminine and it's not going to keep him warm at all the way it's rolling like that. And I think that that's just user error, but I didn't know, and now I know, so I'm teaching you. So maybe you guys won't make the same mistake. You want to do combination stitches in order to make your piece not roll, from what I understand. There might be other tips as to how to not make your piece roll, but I don't really know what they are. So, and I'm not even sure if I do the knit stitch and the purl stitch, if eventually that would roll too. I'm not sure if you did just a line of each. I know you could do something that's called a seed stitch, where you do knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one, all the way across the row. And maybe I'll do that next, just to give it, because I'm just really, I don't know, I don't have a pattern. I'm just messing around. And maybe we can come back tomorrow or in a few days, and I can show you how to cast off after I've done all of the scarf or whatever I'm making. I don't even know what I'm making right now. So there's just a couple more stitches, so let me show you again. You go over the left hand needle and down, and then you want to take your working yarn, go from index finger to thumb around it, and then bring your right needle behind this loop, catching the one you just made, and then you have the stitch now transferred from the left hand side to the right hand side. So I know I'm not explaining that super well, but hopefully you can see what I'm doing and understand a little bit too. So I have 2 more stitches left. Same thing as before, you just continue on, go around, go down and through, and take it off. Last one, same thing. Go in, and you can see how it's a little easier now to hold on. There's something to hold on to. That's kind of nice. Bring this down, and then stitches off, your needle's clean, you switch hands, and you do the same thing, only this time I was going to knit this row. So I will knit this row, again, taking my right-handed needle and doing the exact opposite of what we just did. You're going to want to go underneath the left-hand stick, through and up. So I'm going through this, under and up. And like the first time, especially with these things, sometimes your needles go crazy like that. No problem. Just put them together and pull this a little bit so it's a little bit tighter. Not a big deal. Make sure you're using your working yarn, because now your tail is up front again, so you want to make sure you're using your working yarn. This will get easier as your piece gets bigger because it will go further and further away from you. But in the beginning, just make sure you're not using that one to do anything. So I want to make sure that this is under like that, and then I'm going to then bring this around and go through and like that. I think I was bringing it this way before, wasn't I? I don't know what I was doing. Oh, no, I wasn't. That's right. Okay, I'm like, did I teach all that wrong? I think I don't know. I think I may have just do what I'm doing for the for the stitch, because I feel like I may have told you wrong, but I think I'm doing it right. I think I was just telling you wrong, because it's hard to describe whether or not this is counterclockwise or clockwise. I don't know. You just want to go around the stick, bring this back and up through, and keep on working. After this row, I'll show you where we are and what's going on. And I'm not going to be able to like show you the entire project doing this, because I would go nuts and you guys would go nuts, because it's a slow process, really. I mean, knitting isn't instant gratification, although it is fairly instant. I mean, depending on what you're gratified with, I suppose. I mean, to me, it's the whole process is gratifying, but if you're looking for, you know, to start a scarf today and finish it today, then maybe knitting isn't what you need to do, or at least not this kind of knitting. You could certainly do like chunky yarn and a bigger knit stitch using arm knitting, or even the zippy loom or something like that to do a quick project. But when you're using smaller yarn and smaller needles, you're not going to have a quick, super easy project. I mean, it still might be super easy, I guess, but to me it's not super easy when it's like this. It might be easy-ish, and I can understand why like this would be an easy, labeled as an easy project, because it's just going back and forth doing the same things. But you know, they get more complicated. You could do fancy things in the middle or whatever, but I don't know those yet, so stick with me if you want to just basics right now. And as time goes by and I learn more, maybe I'll get to be doing some fancy stuff. I don't know. I feel really good that I've learned so much already, though, and it's kind of cool to think that I taught myself via YouTube videos. And trust me, if I can do it, you can do it. I'm no prodigy for sure. And then I'm just going through, doing the same thing each time. And as my yarn gets tight, I pull some out because I want it to be really loose in order to do the stitches. It seems to work just so much better. If I have my yarn too tight, then I've totally messed up my stitches. They're going to be too tight. So I like to make sure that I have enough stuff just, you know, pulled out and make it so it's loose enough that I'm not going to be struggling. Few more stitches, and this is exactly the same as the first row. So this is row 3 if we're counting, and we're not because I don't know even exactly what I'm making, so I don't know how long it has to be, so it doesn't really matter. I guess I'm probably making another scarf or something. I don't know. I seem to make a million scarves. So then I can pull that out, and this is ready. And you can see how I've already gotten better at putting the stitch at the bottom, and it's a beautiful color. And then see how it looks so far? Kind of cool. And then this again is the cast on, so that's how that looks. And it's going to get longer and longer from here, and you just keep on keeping on. Just go back from the knit stitch to the purl stitch to the knit stitch to the purl stitch. I think that's what I'm going to do anyway. And so this has to be on top for the purl stitch. Bring this down, and then go over. See, now I'm like second guessing myself, and I'm not even sure I'm taking it the right way. It's so weird when you're like teaching and you're doing it slowly and you have to think about things, because then you're like, I don't know if that's the right way or if this is the right way. And I'm really not sure right now. So yeah, that's no good. I can't teach you if I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like it's this way. And I don't really know what would matter if you did it the wrong way. So I'm not sure exactly, but and it's so weird. Like most times I don't even think about it. I just do it. That one I did the other way. I just kind of wanted to see what the stitch looks like. So weird. I don't know. Oh, yikes. Now I'm pulling them all off. I don't want to do that. Okay. I'm just going to keep on going on. This feels right, so. So if you guys want to try this, or if you want to just give it a whirl. Now I don't know what that is. Then just keep on doing what I'm doing and just keep on keeping on until you get as many rows as you want. Now when I get this to be at the end as to where I want it to be, I will come back on and show you guys how to cast off. I'm wondering if I did this. I hope I didn't teach you guys the purl stitch wrong. If any of you knitters out there can tell me if I screwed it up, I would appreciate it. I am still learning, and it is harder to teach when you are trying to go so slow and you're newbie yourself, because it makes you second guess everything you're doing. At least it does for me. So crazy. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm just going to continue doing this same thing back and forth until I get this to be however long I want it to be. Maybe I'll just make like a pot holder or something. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do. Initially I was thinking kind of a scarf or something, but honestly, how many scarves can one woman have? And I've given a ton away, and yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. But I do love this color, and that's the thing. Sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, I get stingy because I like the color and I like the yarn or the texture or whatever it is. I like it. Of whatever yarn I'm using, I mean. So thank you guys again for watching, and I will be back with how to cast off. Bye-bye.